Hi class. Okay, so I'm on number 10 now, the word problem. And I know I did this in class, but I think that you all can get this. Remember some of the keys I gave you? One is that any equation they give you is only going to have two variables, and your goal is to figure out which numbers they're giving you to put in which variable. So this has to do with an access point, which is where Wi-Fi signals come out of, and it wants to know how strong our Wi-Fi signal is in decibels, depending on how close in meters you are to that access point. So when it says in part A, what is the strength of the Wi-Fi signal exactly at the access point, it is telling us our meter distance is 0. So if our distance is 0 and m is measured in meters, the variable you're going to fill in is the little exponent m. And after you put this in your calculator exactly the way it is, if you're very careful and make sure you use parentheses and use the button that is second ln to get e raised to the x, you should get 50 decibels exactly for 10A. For 10B, it's the same thing, except this time they say our little m, or meters away from the access point, is 5. So you are still inputting a number into the exponent to be multiplied by negative 0.2, and that number is 5. When you calculate that, it says round to the nearest whole number, which you can see that I did not do. Be very careful in the test for the rounding instructions, since it says the nearest whole number. I'm going to use 4 to look at 7. Since 7 is 5 or above, give it a shove. My real answer, or my whole number answer, should be 25 dBs for part B. In part C, it talks about this time, gone too far up. It talks about this time, what happens when I've got a signal of 15 decibels. This time, the 15 is going in the variable over to the left of the equal sign. So now I'm solving for little m, and as you remember, that's going to take ln to basically get rid of this e. But first I must get rid of all the numbers surrounding e so I can take the natural log of both sides. I'm going to start by subtracting 10 from both sides of the equation. Please remember, you cannot combine 10 and 40. 40 is added to 40, which is multiplied times e. So you may not combine these two. You must subtract 10 and get 5 on the left, and then you must divide by 40 so that you finally have e to the negative 0.2m by itself. When you get to this stage, it is time to use our natural log. Natural log is used so that I may cancel out the e. When I cancel out the e, the left side still is a natural log. The right is now, after ln gets rid of e, is now negative 0.2m. And after I divide both sides by negative 0.2, I'm going to get an answer of, in my calculator, by putting this part here in my calculator, I'm going to get an answer of 10.397 meters, and I get that answer because it says round to the nearest thousandth. Okay, your calculator may be dumb, but it is a very good tool for this problem. I am on number 11, which it talks about odd or even function. Remember, odd functions have origin symmetry, and even functions have y-axis symmetry. So it can be even, but unless it is centered on this y-axis. It is not an even function. It is just even degree. This one is an even function because I can draw a line straight down the middle of the function, and that happens at the y-axis. For the one to the right, this is an odd function that is centered on the origin. If it's centered on the origin, it is an odd function that has, oh, this is wrong. It's not y-axis symmetry. This is origin symmetry. Sorry. Okay, the one down here below, this is an odd function. I know that because one side of the function, the end behavior is towards positive infinity. The bottom right goes to negative infinity. It is centered on the origin. So that is odd origin symmetry. The last one is also odd with origin symmetry. I know that because both ends go in opposite directions. You can also do symmetry with your equation. So you'll be given an equation. You will put it in your calculator every time, and you will look to see how the symmetry falls out. If it is an even function like g of x, and the symmetry is about the y-axis, meaning I can draw a vertical line straight down the middle, and that vertical line is exactly at the y-axis, I'm going to call it even. Same thing happens with h of x. It is centered on the y-axis, a vertical line that goes straight through the middle. I'm going to say even function with y-axis symmetry. On the other hand, t of x, negative x raised to the fifth plus 4x cubed, that is going to be an odd function when I look it in my calculator, and I see that it is centered on the origin. Last one, s of x equals negative x to the cubed minus x. It's obviously an odd degree, but to figure out if it's an odd function, I am putting it in my calculator and seeing that it centers on the origin. Okay, number 12. These are problems where I'm going to be using grouping. Grouping is a technique that I can use to factor, and factor is another way of saying dividing, in this case, polynomials. So for 12a, I am given a polynomial that is x cubed plus x squared minus 4x minus 4 equal to 0. Remember, this is my clue that I'm solving. And I'm given one solution that I can convert to a factor. Remember, I take any factor I'm given and set it equal to 0. After I set it to equal, I get x by itself. In this case, the solution would be x equals 1. Well, if x equals, oh, I'm sorry, I should have been, sorry, let me try it again. X plus 1 equals 0. I subtract 1 from both sides, so x equals negative 1. If I'm giving this as a solution, then if I go back to the factor, it's going to be x plus 1. I can use that to make sure that I am doing my grouping, my factoring correctly. After converting my solution to a factor, I am taking my polynomial and I am creating two sets of parentheses so that I can do greatest common factor. On the first set of parentheses, I need something to factor out that is divisible both into x cubed and x squared. So in this case, it means how many x's I can take out. If I've got 3 x's in x cubed and I've got 2 x's in x squared, the most number of x's I can take out are 2. X squared comes outside the parentheses. X cubed divided by x squared is x. X squared divided by itself is 1. Now notice, x plus 1 matches x plus 1. that means I have done the correct factoring on my first set of parentheses. If I've done my factoring correctly on my first set of parentheses, I want to rewrite x plus 1 on the right so that I can now factor something out of negative 4x minus 4 that is going to leave x plus 1 behind. So negative 4x divided by x is negative 4. And negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. Notice x plus 1 matches x plus 1, and that matches our factor x plus 1. I am now going to rewrite all of my factorization below, combining x squared minus 4 into one factor and rewriting x plus 1 one time next to it. Remember, factors or parentheses next to each other mean multiplication. Now, I did this differently here, and so I'm going to cross this out so you can see another way I can do this. And if I look at x plus 1 equals 0, I am going to subtract 1 from both sides, and remember, x equals negative 1 is one of the solutions they gave us. For the other factor, the way to solve is to set the factor equal to 0. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. I have x squared equals 4. And when I have x squared equals 4, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root of both sides, the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 4 is going to be 2, but because it's x squared, it's going to be plus and minus. 2 is our solution. For letter B, I don't know what's going on with the pen, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. Let me clear what I have. Hope I have enough time left in the video. Oh, that cleared too much. Let's try. Okay, 12B is our last grouping polynomial that we're going to use our grouping factoring technique in order to find the last two solutions. Remember, to give us one solution is x equals 1. Therefore, as a factor, it's x minus 1. The next step is to create two sets of parentheses so I can do greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of x cubed and x squared is x squared. X cubed divided by x squared is x minus 1. Is x. X cubed divided by x squared is x. X squared divided by itself is 1. So x minus 1 matches my factor that I created from the given solution. I know if I have x minus 1 as one factor, x minus 1 is going to be the same factor for the second set of parentheses. I want to know how I got x from negative 7x. Well, I divided negative 7x by negative 7 to get positive x. And remember, when I wrote this problem, you probably don't have an x here on your sheet. You need to put an x after the negative 7. So negative 7x divided by 7, negative 7 is x. 7 divided by negative 7 is negative 1. These factors match, so you're going to rewrite them once below, x minus 1, and you're going to combine x squared and negative 7 to be the factor x squared minus 7. You already have the solution for this. It was given in the beginning of the problem. You need to find the other two solutions by setting x squared minus 7 equal to 0, adding 7 to both sides. X squared equals positive 7. You're going to square root both sides to get rid of the square. The square root of a square is x, and since 7 isn't a perfect square binomial, you're going to leave it as a square root and make it plus minus square root of 7. Two solutions, one solution, you're done. Good luck, class. Get lots of sleep, and I know you'll do well on the test.